Every app on your phone went through a gate before it reached you. Not a technical gate, a financial one. Apple and Google control the two dominant app stores in the world, and every developer who wants to distribute software to smartphone users must go through one of them. In exchange for that access, Apple and Google take 30% of every dollar spent inside those apps. Not 30% of profit, 30% of revenue, before the developer pays their engineers, their servers, their marketing costs, or anything else. 30 cents of every dollar has already been collected by the platform. This is the story of how two companies turned software distribution into one of the most profitable toll systems ever built, and why millions of developers continue to pay that toll despite the cost. To understand how app stores make money, you need to understand what they replaced. Before smartphones, software was sold in physical stores, downloaded from websites or distributed on disks. Developers had multiple ways to reach customers, and no single company controlled the distribution channel. The smartphone changed that entirely. When Apple launched the App Store in 2008, it created something new, a single, centralized marketplace for mobile software, built directly into the operating system of every iPhone. Developers who wanted to reach iPhone users had one option: they had to go through Apple. Google followed with the Play Store for Android devices, creating a parallel structure on the other side of the market. Between the two platforms, Apple and Google effectively divided the global smartphone market, and with it, control over how software reaches the people who use it. The result was a duopoly over mobile software distribution that has remained largely intact ever since. The business model that sits on top of this distribution control is straightforward in its structure. Developers who want to list an app on the App Store or Play Store must agree to the platform's terms, which include a revenue-sharing arrangement. For most developers, that arrangement requires them to pay 30% of all revenue generated through the platform, from paid app downloads, from in-app purchases, and from subscription fees collected through the app. The developer keeps 70%. The platform keeps 30%. This 30% figure is not arbitrary, and it did not emerge from a negotiation. It was set unilaterally by Apple when the App Store launched, and Google largely matched it when it established the Play Store. The number became the industry standard simply because the platforms that set it had no competition. There was no alternative distribution channel for mobile software that developers could turn to in order to negotiate better terms. The revenue flow itself is managed entirely by the platform. When a user pays for an app, makes an in-app purchase, or subscribes to a service through an app, the payment is processed by Apple or Google, not by the developer. The developer never handles the transaction directly. The platform collects the full amount from the user, retains its 30%, and then pays the remaining 70% to the developer, typically on a monthly basis after a short holding period. The developer has no involvement in and no control over the payment infrastructure. They simply receive whatever the platform decides to pass on to them, according to the terms they agreed to when they listed their app. This arrangement has significant implications for different types of apps. For a simple paid app, one where the user pays a fixed price to download it, the economics are clear. Apple or Google takes 30% of the purchase price, and the developer receives the rest. But the real financial weight of this model is felt most acutely in two categories: in-app purchases and subscription apps. In-app purchases are transactions that happen inside a free app. A user downloads a game at no cost, but then buys virtual currency, extra lives, premium features, or cosmetic upgrades within the game itself. These purchases can be small individually, but across a large user base, they generate enormous revenue. And every single one of those transactions passes through the platform's payment system, with 30% going to Apple or Google before the developer sees anything. Subscription apps are structured similarly. When a user subscribes to a service through an iPhone app, a streaming platform, a fitness app, a productivity tool, a news publication, that subscription payment is processed by Apple. Apple takes 30% in the first year of the subscription. After the first year, if the subscriber remains active, Apple's share drops to 15%. This reduction was introduced as a concession to subscription-based developers, but it still represents a substantial ongoing cost for any app that relies on subscription revenue. Apple introduced a similar tiered structure for its small business program, which reduced the commission to 15% for developers earning less than $1 million per year through the App Store. This created a two-tier system where smaller developers pay a lower rate and larger developers pay the standard 30%. The practical effect of this program was to reduce criticism from smaller independent developers while leaving the most commercially significant revenue relationships, the large apps generating hundreds of millions of dollars, subject to the full commission rate. The reason this model works is inseparable from the control the platforms exercise over their ecosystems. Apple, in particular, requires that all in-app purchases for digital goods and services be processed exclusively through its own payment system. Developers are not permitted to use third-party payment processors for digital transactions within iOS apps, nor are they permitted to direct users to external websites to complete purchases at a lower cost. Any attempt to do so violates App Store guidelines and can result in the app being removed from the platform entirely. This restriction is the financial cornerstone of the entire model. Without it, developers would have obvious incentives to route payments through cheaper alternatives, bypassing Apple's 30% entirely. The policy that prevents this is not a technical limitation. It is a contractual one, enforced through the threat of removal from the only distribution channel available to reach iOS users. Developers comply because the alternative is losing access to hundreds of millions of customers. Google's Android platform is technically more open. Users can install apps from sources other than the Play Store. But in practice, the vast majority of Android app revenue flows through the Play Store, and the same 30% commission applies. The openness of the Android ecosystem is real at a technical level, but largely irrelevant at a commercial one, because the distribution advantages of the Play Store are significant enough that most developers do not find meaningful alternatives. What makes this model scalable is that the platform's costs do not grow in proportion to the revenue it collects. Apple and Google built the App Store infrastructure, the payment processing systems, the developer tools, the review processes, the storefront, and those systems now handle billions of transactions with relatively fixed underlying costs. Each additional transaction processed generates 30% revenue for the platform without requiring additional infrastructure investment proportional to that transaction. The marginal cost of processing one more in-app purchase is extremely low. The margin collected on that purchase is 30% of its full value. As the app economy has grown, more apps, more users, more in-app spending, more subscriptions, the revenue flowing to Apple and Google through their App Store commissions has grown with it, without a corresponding increase in the cost of running the underlying systems. This is the financial property that makes platform toll models so attractive at scale. The platform is built once. The revenue compounds as the ecosystem expands around it. The broader significance of this model extends well beyond mobile software. What Apple and Google built with their app stores is a template for how digital platforms can extract value from the economic activity that happens within their ecosystems. By controlling the distribution channel, controlling the payment infrastructure, and making both contractually mandatory for developers who want access to their users, they created a system where a 30% share of an enormous and growing market flows to the platform automatically with no need to manufacture anything, employ the people building the products, or take any risk on the success of individual apps. This pattern, controlling the layer through which transactions must pass and taking a percentage of everything that flows through it, is one of the most financially powerful structures in the digital economy. The App Store model made it visible at a scale that was impossible to ignore. Developers, regulators, and legislators around the world have spent years debating whether it is fair. But the financial logic behind it is simple and consistent. build the gate, make the gate the only way in, charge everyone who passes through it, and do it at a scale where the gate itself becomes one of the most profitable pieces of infrastructure in the history of consumer technology.